Hey there guys, so today what we're going to be talking about is portion control. So many of you might be on a weight loss journey, or maybe you have been in the past, or maybe you're planning to be in the future. So weight loss is a big thing. Everyone knows this. It's everywhere. Basically, you look at billboards, it's about weight loss and looking thin. You go on the internet, you're bombarded with things about weight loss. It's everywhere. Weight loss, weight loss, weight loss, right? So today what we're going to actually be talking about is more so how you can control portions without kind of worrying too much about tracking. Because I understand that tracking can work, and it works quite well with a lot of people, but it might not be something that you're actually into, and I understand sometimes I don't really feel like tracking. It's not really something that I want to do, but sometimes you want to still be able to kind of get results by being a bit more mindful around food. So that's where today's video is going to go into, and hopefully you guys find it valuable. So have you tracked in the past? Guess you can ask yourself that question. If you have, you might know that maybe it works for you, maybe it doesn't. Doesn't matter. In this regard, what I'm going to be talking about is another really easy but actually quite effective method you can use to actually control your portions. And the best way you can do it is using one key tool, and you've got them around you pretty much most of the time. All the time, really. Your hands. Okay, so you're going to be using your hands basically to portion control. So we'll start with proteins, so meats, legumes, cheeses, dairies, that kind of stuff. Generally this works more so for, tofu and meats. Those kind of things kind of work more with this kind of portion control method, but we'll go through the two different varieties as well. So starting out with meat. So what you want to look at is the palm. Palm is like a standard, think of it like a meat serve. So, maybe someone, to get results, they need to eat 2 palms of meat or 2 palms of tofu. That could be something that you kind of need, Some people do well on 1. So it's basically about being aware of what works well for you. But basically what you want to be aware of is you're using your palm as a measure. So as you would usually kind of use like 1 cup of rice, in this way there's 1 palm of meat, or 1.5 palms of meat. I hope you get the point. Basically that's what you're going to be using for those kind of protein sources. But what about now if your protein source is a bit different? What if it's like a chickpea based meal maybe, or legumes or something like that? What do you do then? You don't necessarily look at it palms, do you? Generally, you can look at it in the same way you look at carby, starchy foods, which you can go into in a sec, is basically you go for a cupped hand. So if you go like that with your hand, that small cupped area inside, think of that as your portion serve. You can, 1 of those, 2 of those, 3, doesn't matter. It's all individual. That's the number one thing. You're gonna make sure it's all individual. Now, onto carbs and starchy foods in particular when we're looking at this, because technically fruit is carbs. So is some vegetables, but that's not what we're looking at. In this kind of instance, what we're looking at is things like rice, pasta, noodles, that kind of stuff. You get the point, I haven't mentioned all of them there, you got quinoa and stuff like that as well, but you get the point. What we're gonna do there is literally what we just did before with the other protein-based sources, is you're gonna look at it in terms of a cupped hand as well. So, 1 cupped hand, 2 cupped hands, you get the point. Now, vegetables, so the big ones, everyone's wondering how you can increase vegetables. You can look at it 2 ways. You can look at it as handfuls, or you can look at it as fists. I like to use fists just like an easier way to kind of give it volume. So, 1 fist of veggies, 2 fists of veggies, that's what you're using your fists. So kind of to reiterate everything we just spoke about, and then we'll go into more detail about some of these things is, okay, so for meats and proteins generally, you want to go look at it in terms of palm serves. When you're looking at starchy, carby foods, you want to look at it in terms of cupped hands worth. Then if you're looking at vegetables, you're looking at fists worth. I hope that kind of makes sense. If you do have any questions, of course, leave them below and I will answer. In terms of specifics, what I kind of want to really reiterate with this is it's all individual. Not everyone's going to be the same. You might find that you need to cut your starchy foods to a cupped hand worth, and that's what you need to get your weight loss results. Or, or if you're going for weight gain, like muscle building, maybe you need to increase it to 3 cupped hands. It doesn't matter. The point being is I want you to use this knowledge to then go out and start thinking about your portions using your hands as your guides. That's what the point of this video is. So instead of worrying about weighing food or thinking about, counting certain things or using cups that might not be available to you when you're out. So that's the thing I like about this. You can use it when you're out or somewhere with friends. You don't want to be carrying around like a cup served somewhere. It looks weird, first of all, and you probably just don't want to do it. So hands are really good. You have them with you all the time, and it's a very it's not as specific as tracking, obviously, but that's not the point of this. The point of here is to give you an actionable strategy you can use to portion control when you don't have that stuff available, or when you simply don't freaking want to actually count calories and count that to that extent, because I understand that's not for everyone. I've got clients of all different kind of calibers. Everyone has their own individual way of doing it and what they prefer. So what I want you to do is, if you're going to use this method, kind of get familiar in terms of what you need to do to control your portions. And then what you want to do is think about your food intake across the week. Try and kind of gauge how much you're actually having. Look at how your weight is changing. If your weight is increasing, you know that what you're having is roughly in an energy surplus. If you're losing, you're in an energy deficit. Obvious things. If you're maintaining, generally you're in the maintenance phase then. So that's where you can kind of cut down by half a serve of worth or increase it by half a serve worth. Yeah, that's basically what you want to do. Now, those were the primary ones we talked about, you know, your meats, your carbs, your vegetables. But what about the additives? That's where we go into thumbs worth. So 2 thumbs up. Basically, thumbs you want to look at as your serves for condiments, for sauces, for that kind of stuff. So, you know, you can go for like, okay, if someone's kind of eating, let's say, 3 thumbs worth of mayonnaise with their sandwiches, let's say, and then they're noticing they're gaining weight, and let's say they don't want to cut the other stuff first. They want to try and cut the small things, the condiments first. So what do? Okay, they're having 3, you know, thumbs worth of mayo. What they do is cut it to 2 and see how that works. You've cut off you know, some energy from there. Depending on the product and what you're looking at, you're cutting off more or less, you know, anywhere from 200 to 500 kilojoules, depending. So that's where you kind of want to do it. Same way with meat. If you notice you're a big meater, as some of the men I see are, you want to kind of go, okay, maybe I'm having 3 palms of meat. That's not uncommon, I do see it. And then let's say you're noticing that you're actually gaining weight, but you want to lose weight, then you cut it down to 2 palms worth. That's an example. Yeah, usually you want to kind of keep protein pretty consistent, but you know, a lot of people are eating too much meat, so it's always worthwhile to check all your portions, not just focus on one. That's something I always reiterate is with weight loss, you don't want to focus on just one nutrient. They all play a factor. This I see all the time with weight loss. In weight loss, what you're seeing all the time is people are focusing on carbs, focusing on fats, focusing on protein. They're not focusing on the bigger picture, and that's the issue here. You got to focus on one, you know, you got to focus on the whole kind of the whole picture, basically. You don't want to focus on one thing. Carbs get a big bad rap these days, especially with keto now a big thing. People say carbs is the devil. It's the thing that's causing fat gain and it's making me not lose weight and all this kind of stuff, you know, the carbohydrate gremlin or whatever you want to call it. It's simply not true. I mean, yes, a lot of people do overeat carbs. That is a fact. You know, a lot of carby foods are generally junk foods as well. You know, you think about a burger. Yes, that has fats, but it also has carbs. You can't look at it individually. You have to look at the whole picture. You know, chips, same thing. Very, you know, it's not the best source of carbs, but it's also got a lot of fat. So it's a high energy food. You can't look at one kind of thing. You got to look at the whole picture, and that's really the important thing with using your hands as well. Is yes, you can focus on one at a time. Definitely, I do that a lot with clients. Is okay, keep the meat the same, keep the veggies the same, or increase the veggies while you cut the carbs down, because maybe you don't need quite that many carbs. But the point being, you don't want to focus just on one, you want to focus on the whole picture. That's the important thing. You'll be a lot more successful if you do that. So hopefully this has clarified a bit for you guys how you can kind of actually track calories and stay in control without actually worrying about counting and measuring and doing all that stuff. You don't have to always be that specific, and for some people, depending on their weight loss goals, you might just be able to get away with using your hands. Nice and easy, always with you. And hopefully that helps you guys. If there are any concerns or any questions, do let me know in the comments below or send me a message. I will try and help you as best as I can, but until next time, thanks guys.